Hitler had a small group around him. They were very close to him in his circle. And even they didn't like what he was saying, they couldn't leave him.
Mm-hmm.
They had too much knowledge.
Right.
And Obama has the same thing. He has a small group around him.
Right.
And even if they don't agree with him, they cannot leave him. They know too much about him. So what Hitler did, and what Obama, in my opinion, is doing, like this man who died mysteriously on a heart attack, because he was...
Andrew Breitbart we're talking about.
Yeah. He was coming out the next day with a report while this happened.
Right, right.
So he died of a heart attack before.
Yes.
And the man, the autopsy, all of a sudden he died too, because
Yes.
he knew more. So what Hitler did is that when he had a group, when he didn't like it, he sent a man out there or somebody and says, you go over there and you tell him, do you have a family? And that made him shut up.
I got it. He's saying, if you have a family,
He
in
said,
other words, shut up. Yes.
You go over there. This guy doesn't agree with my policy, but I want.
Right.
So you go. I don't go. I am a taboo. I cannot do this. But I have a man. You go over to the man and say, hey, you don't agree with what Hitler says.
Right.
So we all want to say, just, do you have a family over there? You
Yes.
know what that means?
That's threat.
A threat.
Yes.
And everybody backs off if they're being said, because I don't want my family to be killed.
Right.
So Obama is doing the same thing. He has a policy ahead of his strategy ahead, and he knows maybe some people don't like what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't like this. Okay, Mr. Whoever it is, you go over to the guy now and tell him, do you have a family? And they all return, they went, oh, yeah, we do what you want, they shake. They always juggle in the booth and do what Obama wants. And Hitler had the same thing, Obama is the same.
Well, could you talk about what you talked about before, since I got the video running? Just a little bit about what you said about Peter Schiff and what you're worried about. Could you repeat it?
Peter Schiff is right.
Yeah.
But he cannot say the way that it really is. In my opinion, is that it will happen here in this country.
Well, talk about what you said about what you experienced, because you said you lived in Germany during that period where there was inflation.
All I can say,
yeah.
Hitler and Obama are the same. They go parallel. That's what I'm saying. I see step by step by step what he's doing.
But what did you see? You were just talking about that earlier, just so now I can let other people know that
what I'm saying.
About there being the hyperinflation in Germany.
Oh, the hyperinflation.
And what happened over there?
Hyperinflation. In 23. The hyperinflation. The reason why. And here, let me start from the beginning. Okay. What I want to tell you is this.
Yeah.
When Obama was running for presidency, he was going for it, and he took the right time. Hitler was the same thing. Hitler got on the regime because of the right time. We had in Germany the hyperinflation in the 20s. People had no jobs, people had no money. People were unhappy. And they needed somebody to give them a better life. We had it here. The war started in 2001 under Bush.
Yeah.
And people were very unhappy with some instances on that. And they said, we are so unhappy what happened here. We want somebody who can help us. Hitler came out, I help you.
Yeah.
Obama comes out and said, we need a change. And that's what people wanted to have. Hitler on the high said, I help you, we need a change. Everything, Obama. And that's what the Germans said, Hitler.
Well, could you talk more about the Germans,
but I'm saying stupid. The Germans were just as stupid than the American people.
Yeah.
Most of them. There are some of them they understand. But German, that's why I said the Germans people were stupid too. In 1937, after Hitler was in the regime for 4 or 5 years, he knew exactly what he was doing, Hitler.
Yes.
He knew. The American people knew. He had 4 years to take over companies and factories and everything else. People didn't get a job till 1934. They were unhappy with Hitler. They're saying, we don't have jobs. The unemployment was skyrocket high, Everything they had it with Hitler. All of a sudden, he swung it around, Hitler, after 4 years in his regime. In 1936-37, he started with infrastructure, He took the companies, he put the people to work, to ammunition, to tanks, and everything else. And people all of a sudden said, oh, we are happy now. We have jobs.
Yes.
It's wonderful. And they had all jobs. But what they didn't know is this, what Hitler had in Sweden. He wanted to start a war. But nobody knew that because they were happy, they had jobs, they had money to spend on all that. And Obama is doing the same thing. We had the high uninflation, the high unemployment, you know.
Right.
Mark my word. He will, if he makes it into office, or before, we have a few more months to go, he puts everybody to work. Everybody has jobs. And all the companies he took over in the meantime, like Hitler did, he put the people to work. And they're all happy. Guess what? They will vote for him again.
We'll talk about what happened with the currency. You were mentioning that about the
inflation,
dollar and the
high
right
inflation we had. We couldn't even buy anything for the money.
Right.
But we had overnight, unannounced, and this happens to any country, overnight my parents had to get all the money together, had to march to the bank, and I still remember this, all the money together, and they had to march to the bank for 100 German marks. They got 1 mark.
But before that happened, people didn't know, so it was a surprise.
Nobody had clue whatsoever.
So your point is that similar to today, where people don't realize what may happen.
People don't realize what will happen now. I see it happening because we had to go there. The high inflation, we're heading for a super high inflation.
Right.
It was over there in my time, you know. And like I said, the deflation of the money, we got 100 marks, German marks, 1. And the day will come, we will have the same thing here. We have a high inflation where the money isn't worth anything anymore, you know. And we have to march overnight to the bank and get whatever currency.
So having seen it firsthand, what message would you give to the young people who haven't been through what you've been through? What advice would you give to young people right now that don't know what may be coming?
I really don't think the young people will understand it.
Well, that's why here you can explain it to them.
The younger generation.
What advice would you give them? In other words,
I try to tell them the advice is this: don't live beyond your means.
Okay.
Realize what is coming. Wake up.
But should they keep their dollars? Should they get gold and silver? Should they?
They should invest, but the young people don't have money to invest.
Right.
Because what happened to you're young too, but the older people, when the young people have money, they're living from a hand in a mouth. They do not know how to save money.
Yeah.
They don't save money. They get the money, they spend the money. They want everything. They want the latest things, Look at when you go around how the young kids are looking.
Yeah.
They're closing. Albert, I went to the bank one time. She had fingernails polished,
Yeah.
And they said, "Look at this polish costs money." Oh, well, that's just a dollar, little money. That's when the saving starts. Deny yourself a lot of things. Make a sacrifice. Save the money up. And prepare yourself for the future, what is coming, because the future is not really nice. What is coming is ahead of us, and that's what I can say. Prepare yourself for it. But the young kids are not prepared for that. As far as I'm concerned, in order to make the young people make them wake up, it has to happen in this country to make them wake up.
But then it'll be too late. So that's the point.
It's too late.
That's the reason I'm videotaping you, so people to hear this.
When you go back
instead of after the fact.
Let me tell you, when you go back in history, every 50 years, a war cleans up the air.
Well, don't you think it's every 50 years because they don't remember? Because by then it's a new generation, and they have been through it as well.
See, the thing is this. I lived with nothing. I was poorer than poor. I value a penny. It's money to me.
Sure.
The young kids don't value this anymore. That's beyond. It's just a penny, Our younger generation, the baby boomers, and probably baby boomer too, they have grown up with good times only.
Yeah.
And they're used to getting everything. And the reason why it is, the older generation, myself, we are actually in fault. Because we went through bad times and we wanted to have our kids this better.
Yeah.
We did it to our own kids. We want to have them have it better than we had it, And that's my son told me this one time too. Mom, you did it, and I do it to my kids. But what I think is this: the younger generation, they don't have any discipline right now.
Yeah.
The morals are gone. There's no discipline. And that's what the parents have neglected to raise the children.
Yes.
That is a big problem in this country. And if we want to get out, and this is what I'm saying finally, and I've said this to my husband many times, if this country wants to come back on their feet, the way I saw it 53 years ago when I came over, one thing has to happen: a war. To bring the people back to reality. and see it happening. When this happens and everything is flattened down and crumbled down, people wake up. They're building it up again, and they will value this and have respect for little things. And that's what is not there today anymore. There is no respect for little things. They don't appreciate anything anymore. Am I right on this?
Yeah, it's true. It really is true. Things are different
you know,
than they were.
actually, I lived in France in 51, 52.
Okay.
And the francs just kept getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And they had a national referendum on a new constitution because the old one wasn't working.
Okay.
And then the gold got banned, and they just moved the decimal over a couple of points. 500 francs became 5 francs. 1,000 francs became 100 francs.
So what advice can you give, for somebody who has some savings, in today's economy, based on what you've both been through?
Buy something that holds its value.
Let me tell you something else. Let me tell you only one thing. Let me tell you one thing about one Francis said. Example, it's really true. I was 10 years old. The war came to an end, right? And we lived in a housing complex. No running water, nothing. Really poor.
And this was where? In Germany?
In Germany.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something else. When you said, what would you advise?
Yeah.
Money is useless. Gold and silver, hard assets, bring you to the war on the field. And let me tell you, I remember I was 8 years old and we had nothing. We had to jump on a moving train, to some little village, begging for food, right? My sister and I, we were not the only one begging for food. We went, never forget this, we went into a farmer's house. There was the farmer sitting with his wife. She sat there, and he sat there and said, he came in, 2 girls, 8 or 9 years old, right, begging for food. And they sat there and he said, look, I'm not going to give you anything. And his wife sat next to her and said, please, she said, look at the 2 little girls. They're really hungry. Why can't we give them a little bit,
Yeah.
And you know what they said? Okay, we give them a piece of bread and a little piece of cheese. And we were so happy to get that, begging for food. Now, I want to tell you, in order to get out of the things, because my parents didn't have all that. My father was a hard worker, He was drafted to the war in 1939. My mother had 3 kids, the bombing of Hamburg, flattening of Hamburg,
Mm-hmm.
When I lived in this little housing complex with nothing, I mean we had nothing, there was a family. She had 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. And her husband was in the war too, but he had a pharmacy before. So he came out of the war. Within 1 week, all the women were helping each other. This woman didn't know how to do housework. My mother and everybody had to help her. This man came back. Within 1 week,
Yeah.
he had a bicycle for his kids. He had a car, and he took his family out of this complex. You know how he got it? He had gold and silver.
That's quite a good thing to learn.
That's
Yeah.
what gets you through the war. Money is useless. Gold and silver, you survive on that.
They're the
And
true.
that's the only thing that
That's the
gets
true
you through
money.
it.
True
That
money.
is an example I had. That man had gold and silver.
And that's how he
And then he
was
went
able
out
to
to the
survive.
farmers. He got food. He got everything. Gold and silver buys you anything. That's what people want. They don't want your money.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'll put this up on Facebook, on YouTube, to let people know about it as
what I
well.
can tell you.
Thank you very much.
Gold and silver gets you to the bad times only.
Are we going to all of a
Nothing
sudden
else.
have a bunch of phone calls?
Well, I don't know, but at least you'll be getting the word out to some people who really don't understand and don't know what's going on. That's what's important. We're at the Gold Conference, the Money Show in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's May 16th, 2012.
Can't get a income CD for our bank.
Well,
There's
a
no
dollar.
place to put money now.
The prices
another thing I
are
want to
about
tell you.
18 times as
Yeah.
high as they were.
When the kids go into school right now,
Mhm.
Everybody is
I grew up in the
compassionate.
30s.
If there's something happening, there's a crisis.
Right.
Right to be counselors. Oh my God.
Well, wait a minute.
My first job, you know, I went
hot dog
going
was
back
a
to school.
was a
My best girlfriend, when he got bombed out in Hamburg, Flattened, in 1942.
Wow.
The bombing of Hamburg. I was in a bunker. And that is really
I
true. I was
remember
in a
in
bunker.
1939
That's a
the war
war.
started.
And
All
our
of
women
a
and
sudden,
children,
the
my
hot
mother
dog that
didn't
was a nickel
believe
became a
in
dime.
hitting a child.
The Coke became a dime.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah.
Everything went up all of a
And
sudden.
we were all in there. There were two men in there. They came from the war, just had a few days off. They were with us in the bunker,
Where was that?
and all women and children.
Yeah.
And they were bunk beds. And on the bunk beds was a grandmother. And when you're young, you don't understand everything. And this grandmother lost her mind. And I laughed. My mother took her hand and she whacked me over the head, in the head. First time in my life. Never forgot that. Never. That was the only time. My mother used to look at us and we behaved. Just a look. But she took her hand when I got
A little more discipline at that time than today.
when the mother. Now here we are in a bunker. Didn't know what the inferno was out there in the shipyard. All the tankers, oil ships.
Yeah.
Is that the water was coming in. And we had benches standing there. There were the two men in the bunker. There was a pump in the corner where they could jump on and pump in fresh air because there was no circulation in the bunker. Pump air in there. And all of a sudden they were pumping smoke in there. And all the women were yelling, "Stop pumping, the smoke comes in from the outside." So they stopped. And now we saw the water coming into the bunker. And we had to go all on the picnic benches. And we had just a suitcase, that's all, but we had the clothes on our body. And we had to walk down on the benches towards the door outside. It was a big metal door with a big latch on it, metal. So the two men in the bunker, they went into the front and tried to open the door. The door wouldn't open.
Okay.
Because it was melting the heat enough, which we didn't know inside. And they finally said, we have to give up, we cannot. The water was up to my hips as a girl. You know, we were all drowning almost.
Oh my God.
And then, up to my hips. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I was 8 years old, you know, so I was like this. And so we are all standing in water there. And then the two men said, we cannot get the door open. So then they said, we do it one more try. They found something, whatever it was. And they made one try and pried the door open with the latch. You know, and opened up the door and we looked out. There was a big inferno out there. And there were all these little tankers, you know, they're oil tankers on ships. And all the soldiers on the ships, they sunk all the ships, you know. There were oil underwater and they were swimming in the oil and dying and crying. I'll never forget this. But what I really want to tell you is this, about the child. The whole, I mean, it was an inferno out there. I mean, craters of bombs and people running around, losing their mind on all this business, you know. And so anyway, we came around the building, flames were coming out. And here is my mother in front of it, my sister on the arm. She was only a year or 2 years old, and my sister and I running behind my mother, you know. And then here is my girlfriend. Her mother was trapped on a big iron beam in this building. My best girlfriend. And she told, Waltraud was her name, and she told, I was kind of, I have to say this. And the mother said to her all the time, Waltraud, run, save your life. And said, Mommy, I'm not leaving you alone. She burned with her mother to death. And here, when I think there's so many times in the schools when they're holding these kids, their hands, you know, oh, somebody died on all this, the counselor all over the place. I have never had a counselor. I had to get over it. I just had to run for my life. You know, my mother was on the boat and I was on the land, and they threw me on the boat. I could have sank in the water. I have so many stories to tell. It is just,
Well, thank you very much for this interview. Appreciate it.
But that's another thing. The kids are too soft.
In reality, it's supposed
Yep.
to
They're
train.
too soft.